Hello chess lovers! I have a very dramatic game for you played at Paris Grand Chess Tour 2016 with the white pieces playing Laurent Fressinet and his opponent is Magnus Carlsen. This was a Blitz game and Fressinet started with d4, knight c6 by Carlsen, Mikenas Defense. The opening resembles Laurent's defense but on the opposite side of the board. Knight f3. Usually black is responding with d5, but this time we see knight f6, which allows d5, and believe it or not, but in this position Carlsen again placed the knight on its initial square, knight b8. What's going on, guys? Is Carlsen trolling his opponent? Developing and then undeveloping. But let's see, will Fressinet manage to use this fact and gain advantage? Knight c3 d6, e4 g6, bishop e3, bishop g4, h3, bishop captures on f3, queen takes f3, bishop g7, white castles queenside, knight d7, g4, white is starting an advancement on the king side, but of course black is not hurrying to castle king side. This can be very dangerous. Instead Carlsen plays c6, queen e2, rook c8, bishop d4, and now comes c5, bishop e3, queen a5. Now black is planning to play a6 followed by b5. Looks like this is going to be a very dangerous attack. That's why Fressinet played queen b5, offering an exchange of queens. But now Carlsen plays a6 and then push the b pawn. g5, knight h5, a4, b4. The queens are exchanged, but still Carlsen is attacking on the queen side. Knight b1, now comes the c pawn, c4, knight d2, c3, knight b3. Well, actually capturing on c3 is also playable with the following continuation, but of course knight b3 is more precise. C takes b2 check, king b1, rook c3, bishop d4, and an interesting decision by Carlsen, castling kingside, going for an exchange sacrifice, but Fressinet first captured on a6, knight c5, and only now we see bishop takes c3. We also see the exchange of knights, d6, white wants to activate his rook, rook takes d6, knight f4, rook d1, doubling the rooks, and then playing bishop b7, and now white is going to push this pawn forward. Knight takes h3, there it goes, a5, knight takes f2. In return this knight is capturing everything on its way, and rook takes d4, removing this powerful bishop from its outpost. C takes d4 and rook takes d4. Instead of capturing on d4, actually a6 is also playable, after which this crazy variation can arise. Knight h2, a8 queen, knight f3. Now black is threatening knight d2 check and then promoting the pawn to a queen. Now rook takes d4 is not a good idea because after rook takes a8, bishop takes a8, knight d2 check, black is winning. There is no way to stop this pawn. That's why after knight f3, black should play rook b6, covering the b1 square after knight d2 check, and then black can capture on a8, play knight d2 check. This is a very crazy line, though black is a rook down, but still black can fight back. White has to be very careful. But instead after c takes d4 we see rook takes d4, rook e8. Well, actually f5 is stronger, trying to open up the position on the king side and free his pawns. But instead after rook takes d4 we see rook e8, and gradually white is getting a huge advantage. This pawn on a6 square is of course very dangerous. Rook d3 coming after the pawn on c3, knight takes g5, rook takes c3, king g7, a7, knight e8, and in this position Fressinet had an easy chance to win the game. You can pause the video and try to find the winning move. Ready? He played rook c8, but actually the winning move is bishop c8. Blocking the 8th rank, also not allowing knight c7, and Carlsen could already resign. But instead, after knight e6 we see rook c8, and after the exchange of rooks the knight is just in time covering the a8 square. Bishop b7, king f6, e5 check, sacrificing the pawn in order to open up this diagonal and try to stop these pawns. King takes e5, king takes b2, h5, king b3, g5, a8 queen, black captured on a8, and then g4. Let's see, will white manage to stop these mighty pawns? h3, king e3, now comes the f pawn, f5, c4, f5 check, king f2, king d4, bishop d5 protecting the pawn, king c5, king g1, now comes g3, king h1, king d4, king g1. This is a mistake. As this was a blitz game, I guess already the players were under a terrible time pressure and Fressinet made a mistake. It was better to play bishop e6, attack the pawn, and if h2 then bishop d5, cover the light squares, and this is going to end up in a draw. But instead, after king d4 we see king g1. Here comes king e3, c5, f3, c6, f2 check, king f1, g2 check, bishop takes g2, h takes g2 check, and Fressinet resigned. If king takes g2 then king e2, and black is just in time managing to promote the pawn to a queen with a check and then stopping this pawn, and it's over. Black is winning. Another interesting game where Carlsen shows his superiority, proving that he can even play some crazy moves in the opening, like that knight b8 move, and still beat strong grandmasters. If you enjoy this crazy game, don't forget to give the thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. More games are coming. Good luck.